I'm getting this wrong. It appeared as though the punishment for death was chopping off the hands.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillahilladzi arsala rasulahu bil huda wa dinil haqq liyuzhirahu 'ala dini kullihi wa kafa billahi syahida. Asyhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la syarikalah wa asyhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluhu la nabiyya ba'dah. Berjumpa lagi dengan channel saya Mars Techno. Saya doakan semoga semua sahabat dalam keadaan sehat selalu. Pada video kali ini kami akan menampilkan bagaimana usaha dakwah seorang dokter Sabeel Ahmed. Beliau berdakwah di Amerika, mengenalkan Islam pada masyarakat Kristen yang ada di sana. Pada kesempatan ini beliau menjelaskan tentang hukum syariah Islam. Dan pada sesi ini ada pertanyaan dari seorang wanita tentang hukum potong tangan dalam Islam yang menurutnya ini tidak adil dan sangat kejam. Bagaimana jawaban dari Dr. Sabeel Ahmed? Nah sahabat, mari kita saksikan saja videonya dan saya akan sedikit mereaksinya.
So let's come to the Sharia law, right? Sharia law in a nutshell, it is a how-to manual. It's a how-to manual to establish justice and peace in the society. You know, just like we have a how-to manual, when somebody becomes a new employee, you have a how-to manual for the new employees, for a new student. When you are learning how to drive, that's a how-to manual, which is like the rules of the road. So Sharia law is a how-to manual. It's God's guidance that God gave in the Quran and through example of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, how we can establish justice, equality and peace in the society. We say that Sharia law was also given to Prophet Jesus and also given to Prophet Moses. You know the 10 commandments that you saw. We say that that was the part of the Sharia law that was given to Moses. You know, when the 10 commandments says that worshipping one God, being good to your parents, do not lie, do not cheat, do not murder, we say that was part of the Sharia law given to the Jewish people through Moses. When it says in the book of Leviticus chapter 11 verse number 3 that do not eat pork, we say that was part of the Sharia law given to Prophet Moses. The dietary laws, the cultural, the clothing and the spiritual laws that were given. What comes to your mind when you think of the Sharia law? What could be like? Go ahead.
Cutting people's heads off.
Yeah, you know, sometimes, I mean, most of the time when we think of the Sharia law, the cutting part comes to mind, right? This, correct? The punishment.
In Saudi Arabia, isn't that right?
Yes.
January 16th this year, 47 people were publicly beheaded in Saudi Arabia.
Right. So the very first thing that comes to our minds or the media portrays about the Sharia law is about the punishment system, right? About punishment. But let me give this analogy to all of you, right? Let's look at this analogy. Let's look at our friends over here. Well, if people from Mars, if they come down on earth and if they ask me the question, you know, Sabeel, what is the US Constitution about? And if I tell them that the US Constitution, it kills people. It kills people, that's all I say, and then they leave. Now let me ask you this question. Am I doing justice to the US Constitution?
No.
I'm not, because I only mentioned maybe 0.5% of the US Constitution. I left the breadth and the beauty of the US Constitution. All the wonderful benefits, the sponsorship, the education, the services to the elderly, to the homeless people that the US Constitution provides. In the same way, in the Sharia law, there is less than 0.5% of the Sharia law speaks about the punishment system, the penal system. But the rest of the Sharia law, it speaks about the wonderful benefits, the guidance, the solutions that is there for humanity and for the individual. So when you look at the Quran, 6,000 plus passages in here, less than 15%, not 15% actually, less than 15 passages speaks about the punishment system. That's it. The rest of the Sharia law present here speaks about the rest of the wonderful ways that humanity, individuals, and the family could benefit. I have some bad news here. The food is going to be late. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm only a messenger. All right. Maybe like 15 minutes or so. If all of you could tolerate, I would really appreciate, right? All right. Get him. So these are some of the examples. Honoring your parents, giving freedom of religion and expression to the people. Being good to your neighbors. You know, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, he said, you are not a believer, you are not a Muslim if you eat your full and your neighbors are hungry. You are not a believer. That's what Sharia law says. Conducting marriages, establishing families, you know, all the rituals of the marriage ceremonies, providing rights to the women, giving charity to the poor, guidance to the families, parents, children, smiling at each other. So these are parts of the Sharia law. When we are giving charity to the poor, the needy, the homeless, you know, especially in Chicago, there are thousands and thousands of people. When you go there in the downtown area, when you give $1, $2, $5, we are practicing the Sharia law. When I'm sharing my knowledge over here, I am practicing the Sharia law in front of all of you. So it's very important. Sharia law is God's guidance that God has given for individual and for humanity. So if some people in the Middle East or some places, they may use the word Sharia law, they may use the word jihad, they may say Allahu Akbar or Bismillah, and if they are doing acts of violence, they are going against the gold standard, which is the Quran. If they are killing the minorities or forcefully trying to convert them or suppressing the women, obviously they are deluded, brainwashed, they are in the wrong, and here is the gold standard, which are the teachings of Islam. Yes, ma'am.
I noticed on your lives, unless I'm getting this wrong, it appeared as though the punishment for death was chopping off the hands. If that's the case, I really need an answer to that. That seems really cruel and really wrong.
Okay, so the question is, perhaps in the slide I may have shown that punishment for theft is chopping off the hands. If that is so, you feel that it is very cruel and unusual punishment, correct? Okay. Sure. So it's very important that when it comes to any punishment system in Islam, you know, just like in the US Constitution, there are consequences for any theft, any cheating, any lying, any murder, there are consequences. But those punishments, like suppose if the person sees that somebody has stolen a loaf of bread in the bakery, the baker does not have the right to punish the person by the US Constitution, right? It has to be taken to the court. And the court is going to decide, listening from both sides, the video evidence, whatever evidence. In the same way, in Islam, for theft or for any punishment way or for any crime, there are always checks and balances to see that what is the amount the person is stealing. Was that item, was it placed like outside of the store, easy access, or was it hidden and the person took it? So all of those things are taken into consideration, but a very important thing taken into consideration is, has the state, the country, the government, have they been meeting the basic needs of this person? If the state failed to meet the basic needs of the person, that means the state is responsible for what the person is doing. And I'll give you one example. During the time of the second caliph, whose name is Umar, during his time there was a famine, right? Drought and famine. So the state was not able to meet the needs of the people. During that time, the punishment system, especially for the theft, it was abolished. Do you understand? So all of these things have to be taken into consideration. It's not just, okay, suppose somebody stole like 10 cents from a store and now their hands are chopped off, right? The amount, how it is placed, how is the state meeting the needs of the people. After all the checks and balances, that's when some punishment is given. Now, sometimes we may feel that some other religions, some other faiths punishment system may be a little bit harsh, right? Now, let's compare and contrast. In Europe, to the best of my knowledge, or maybe in majority of the European countries, there is no death penalty. Am I right? Okay, now, we have death penalty in some of the states in the USA. Compared to the European people, us killing, like in Texas, we are doing something barbaric, inhumane, taking the life of an individual. Only God could do it. It's how we look at it. And last very important point is chopping of hand, death penalty, stoning by death. These are not unique to Islam. If we look at the Old Testament, there are passages after passages, Exodus and Leviticus and Deuteronomy. Abusing your parents, disrespecting to parents, it is stoning to death. Adultery is stoning to death. Not being a virgin on the wedding night is stoning to death. All of these are God's commandments. Some of you who are from the Jewish and the Christian faith, these are all some of the things. Now we could say that, why? But if you say that these are God's commandments, yes, they may have came like centuries ago. So what we are saying is that the punishment system in Islam, there's a checks and balances with all of the due checks and balances. And these punishments are not unique to Islam. They're also there in previous scriptures. Right? So that's all I'm saying regarding that aspect. So I hope you get a more context and perspective and the historical and the scriptural context to it. In this country over here, despite all the greatness of this country, there are no less than 93,000 rapes in this country. And these are only reported rapes. Okay? That's tragic. Even one single one is too many. The people, if they are caught, average, they spend 5 to 7 years in prison if they are caught. Revolving door policy. So what Islam says is that if the person is committing a heinous act, compromising the person's dignity, that means they have to be such punishment. That means other future rapists, it will teach them a lesson. You could say that, yeah, let's be lenient to the rapists and whatnot. What about the 93,000 more who are going to be raped? So what Islam is saying is that, yes, you may say it's barbaric, but if those laws are going to prevent 93,000 more rapes, yes, barbaric for one person, but dignity for the 93,000, which one do we choose?
Masya Allah, penjelasan yang sangat masuk akal dan penuh dalil dari Dr. Sabeel Ahmed. Pada kesempatan ini beliau menjelaskan tentang hukum syariah Islam yang sering dipandang sangat kejam oleh orang-orang non-Islam, apalagi di media Amerika dan Eropa, sangat menyudutkan terhadap syariah Islam yang digembar-gemborkan pasti saja mengenai hukum potong tangan, rajam, dan lain-lain. Alhamdulillah, dengan luasnya wawasan dari Dr. Sabeel Ahmed dan kecermatan beliau dalam membandingkan hukum syariah Islam yang sebenarnya juga ada di perjanjian lama di kalangan orang Yahudi, seperti 10 perintah Tuhan yang diberikan kepada Nabi Musa oleh Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. Itu juga merupakan syariah law atau hukum syariah. Dan beliau juga mendapat pertanyaan yang sangat tajam dari seorang wanita, bahwasanya hukum memotong tangan itu sangat kejam. Beliau jawab dengan sangat elegan, mengingatkan bahwa hukum rajam juga terdapat dalam perjanjian lama, bahwasanya hukum rajam pun ada di dalam perjanjian lama, di dalam kitab mereka. Hukumannya itu lebih berat. Tidak menghormati orang tua, hukumannya rajam. Tidak perawan saat wanita menikah di malam pertama, hukumannya rajam. Hukum berzina juga rajam. Jadi hukum syariah Islam ini sebenarnya banyak juga hampir mirip dengan syariah yang dibawa nabi-nabi terdahulu. Karena memang dalam mata rantai kenabian, Nabi Muhammad SAW adalah nabi terakhir yang menyempurnakan syariah dari nabi-nabi sebelumnya, seperti Nabi Musa, Nabi Isa, dan terakhir Nabi Muhammad SAW. Dr. Sabeel Ahmed ini menjelaskan hukum syariah Islam adalah petunjuk atau manual book jika kita ingin menerapkan syariah Islam, yaitu tahapan-tahapan apa saja yang akan dilaksanakan dalam hukum Islam. Jadi bukan hanya potong tangan, tetapi juga ada hukum zakat, hukum infak, sedekah, dan yang lain-lainnya. Jadi di dunia barat, jika umat Islam dikaitkan dengan hukum syariah, pasti yang dibesar-besarkan adalah tentang hukum rajam dan hukum potong tangan. Karena itu adalah propaganda dari mereka, media barat, yang tidak menginginkan Islam berkembang di Eropa dan Amerika. Nah sahabat, mungkin itu saja sedikit reaksi dari video ini. Mudah-mudahan bermanfaat. Wabillahi taufik wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.